Welcome to Grace Mitchell Stories, where every tale carries the spark of humanity, kindness, and hope. Today's story will take you into a glittering mansion where a maid's hidden gift left a billionaire in awe and changed both of their lives forever. The Harrington estate was one of those places people whispered about but rarely saw. It stretched across acres of land, with marble fountains rising high into the sky, gardens pruned into perfect shapes, and chandeliers that seemed to drip with stars. Inside, the air smelled of roses and polished oak, and every corner gleamed as though wealth itself had taken residence. The owner of this palace was Adrian Harrington, one of the richest men in the country. Billionaire, investor, philanthropist, but also a man with a reputation colder than ice. He was feared more than loved, admired more than respected. In the newspapers, they wrote about his brilliance. In hushed conversations, people whispered about his pride. And yet, behind this empire of wealth, there worked those who were invisible. Among them was Isabella. Isabella was the maid who arrived at the mansion before sunrise and left long after the moon had risen. She wore the same uniform every day, carefully mended where the fabric had worn thin. Her hair was always tied back in a simple bun, and her shoes, once black and shiny, now showed scuffs from years of labor. She moved like a shadow, quick and quiet, polishing glass, arranging flowers, cleaning without complaint. But Isabella carried a secret. At night, when no one was watching, she danced. Alone in her small rented room, she let her body move to rhythms only she could hear. Her feet traced patterns across the worn floorboards. Her arms painted stories in the air. Dance was her escape, her freedom, the one part of herself that poverty could not chain. But in the daylight, in the mansion of the billionaire, she never spoke of it. Until one night changed everything. The Harrington estate was preparing for a grand party. Business leaders, celebrities, and politicians were all invited. The chandeliers were polished until they glittered like diamonds. The marble floors waxed to a mirror shine. Waiters rehearsed their steps, chefs perfected their menus, and Adrian Harrington demanded perfection. Isabella worked harder than ever that day, running from hall to hall with trays of glasses and buckets of ice. By the time the guests began to arrive, her feet ached, but she kept moving. Invisible among the glittering gowns and black tuxedos, the music began. A live orchestra filled the ballroom with rich melodies as couples twirled across the floor. Laughter rang out, champagne glasses clinked, and Adrian Harrington stood at the center of it all, watching his empire of influence swirl before him. But then, a guest, a man known for arrogance and cruelty, snapped his fingers at Isabella. "You there?" Maid. His voice cut through the music. Heads turned. Isabella froze, clutching the tray of empty glasses. "Yes, sir?" He smirked cruelly. "Dance for us. Surely even the help knows how to entertain." The room fell silent. Guests exchanged uneasy glances. Isabella's cheeks burned with shame. Her eyes darted toward the door, but the guest's voice boomed again. "Don't be shy. Show us what you've got." Adrian's sharp eyes narrowed. He had built a world where people followed his rules. But he said nothing yet. Watching closely, Isabella's heart pounded. She wanted to refuse to run, but the mocking laughter around her grew louder. And then, almost without thinking, she placed the tray on a nearby table. Her hands trembled, but her eyes held steady. She stepped onto the edge of the ballroom floor. The orchestra faltered, uncertain, but Adrian raised his hand. "Play," he ordered quietly, and the music began again. At first, Isabella's movements were small, hesitant. A soft sway, a careful turn. The crowd snickered. But then something shifted. The rhythm took hold of her, and her body remembered the secret it had lived in silence. Her arms extended like wings. Her feet spun across the polished marble. Her every motion a story woven in air. The laughter stopped. The guests fell silent, their eyes fixed on the maid who no longer seemed like a maid at all. The room blurred. The chandeliers melted into stars. And Isabella became the center of a universe where grace and passion spoke louder than words. She leaped, twirled, and glided, her face alive with a light no one had seen before. Every movement carried strength and vulnerability, defiance and beauty. And Adrian Harrington, the billionaire who had seen everything, found himself unable to breathe. He had watched prima ballerinas in Paris, flamenco dancers in Spain, performers on the grandest stages in the world, yet none of them had ever moved him like this, made in his own mansion. When the music ended, Isabella froze in her final pose, chest heaving, eyes glistening with unshed tears. For a moment, there was silence. Then applause erupted. Guests stood, clapping furiously. their earlier cruelty forgotten in awe. The arrogant man who had mocked her shrank back in embarrassment, his smirk erased. Adrian stepped forward, his voice cutting through the applause. Enough. The room quieted instantly. All eyes turned to him. He walked toward Isabella slowly. His gaze locked on her. She lowered her head, trembling. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean look at me, he commanded softly. She lifted her eyes, bracing for anger. Instead, she saw something she had never expected. Wonder. Adrian spoke, his voice quieter now but filled with weight. Who taught you to dance like that? Her lips parted. No one, sir. I taught myself. He studied her, the corners of his mouth lifting almost imperceptibly. Remarkable. The party continued, but Adrian could not take his eyes off her. That night, after the last guest left and the chandeliers dimmed, he summoned Isabella to his study. She entered nervously, wringing her hands. Sir? Adrian leaned against his desk, studying her intently. Do you know what you did tonight? She swallowed hard. I only did what they asked, sir. No, he said firmly. You revealed yourself. And in doing so, you revealed something about all of us. You reminded this room and me that beauty and power don't only belong to those with wealth. Isabella blinked. Stunned, he continued, his tone softening. You have a gift. One that deserves a stage greater than this mansion. Her heart raced. But I'm just a maid. No, Adrian said, shaking his head. That is only your position. It is not your identity. For the first time, Isabella saw not the cold billionaire the world knew, but a man moved beyond words. In the weeks that followed, Adrian insisted Isabella take professional lessons. At first she resisted, fearing to step into a world that was not hers. But with every class, every performance, her confidence grew. Adrian himself often watched, not as a master observing a servant, but as a man humbled by the discovery of something pure and extraordinary. Months later, Isabella stood on a real stage for the first time. The grand theater was filled with hundreds of people, their faces blurred in the shadows. The orchestra began, and she danced as though she were born for that moment. Every step was freedom, every twirl defiance, every leap a declaration that the maid was gone and the artist had emerged. In the front row, Adrian Harrington sat silently, his chest tight with pride. For years, wealth had surrounded him but left him empty. That night, he realized something money could never buy: the power of art, the courage of a soul unafraid to be seen. When Isabella finished, the audience erupted in applause. She bowed deeply, tears streaming down her cheeks. And as she rose, her eyes found Adrian's. He stood, clapping. His normally stern face softened by something the world had rarely seen in him: humility. The maid who once scrubbed his floors had reminded him of humanity, and in her courage, he found his own. Isabella's life changed forever. She became a dancer admired not just for her skill, but for the story of her rise. And Adrian changed too. He opened foundations to support young artists, funded schools, and often said, wealth can build empires, but art can build souls. The shock was not that a maid was forced to dance. The shock was that her moves revealed something far greater, a truth that left even a billionaire speechless. Because sometimes the people we overlook carry treasures that can change the world. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and comment below. And make sure to subscribe to Grace Mitchell Stories, where the simplest tales often hold the greatest miracles.